gamers. We are one. We are Darken.
We are Lock.
Bomb has been planted.
Kenny S is stuck in the site, finding wall. That's brilliant, and Kenny S again up close. Oh my goodness, Kenny S!
Everyone chasing down, gets a trap, and the knife comes in. Simple, of course, stabs in straight in the chest.
So aggressively, Dennis catches him off. That's ungodly from Dennis.
Oh my God, that awareness, the timing works out perfectly. Just as they turn away.
Well, guys, there ain't no party like an S-Cub party, and of course that S stands for Henry G, because he and I are here to bring you week 3 of Drop the Bomb. Hard to believe we're already halfway through season 1.
We are. Episode 3's here. It's kind of flown by, our time in Cologne here. It's going pretty quickly. Lots of Pro League. Been a bit of a quieter week, though, for us, I guess. Instead of no Gamescom Mania this time. Just been doing our work, keeping our head down. You've been playing Final Fantasy a lot.
I have. How's
that going for you?
That actually stemmed out of boredom, having not received my tickets to go to the Belgian Grand Prix as I was anticipating.
Why didn't you go? What happened?
Well, to be fair, I was a little bit last minute booking, which that onus falls on me. I wasn't sure we were going to be free. Our schedule is a little bit hectic, so I kind of always have to wait until last minute to discover if I'm free or not.
Yep.
But I ordered, and this is kind of a thing that irks me with Formula One and the old school habits of Bernie Ecclestone, although there's rumors that things are going to be moving more advanced and worldly and technology-wise in the future. But there's no e-tickets. So if there was an e-ticket, it would have been no problem. I would have had it emailed to me, but it was a 3-day shipping. I never received it. I have a feeling it was actually in the truck scheduled for delivery on Friday, a UPS truck, and it never made it. And it's still listed when you would run the tracking number as in the truck. So I think that UPS employee might have enjoyed a nice Formula One race.
Well,
doubt that's true, but that's my theory.
Silver lining, you got your money back, right? So
I did, yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world that could have happened. And
Tom, what are you doing?
I don't know. It's falling apart in the first 5 minutes, but it's fine. Then Tom and I actually went to Sweden and we filmed some really cool content, one of which we can show you today. I think we've already announced it. It's going to be a really interesting piece of Semmler coming up, so that's something to look forward to. It's actually really nicely shot. It's in his office. He gets some really good answers from him. He is, of course, very opinionated, so he gave us some good insight as to where he is with like kind of Valve and the CSGO as a whole right now.
I think we're all opinionated. He's just not scared to be vocal about it. I think I've become that way, and at times I might overstep the mark. I think we all do, but he's one that is consistent with his opinions, and that's a good thing. So it was a good interview to probe. I think you guys did some other stuff too. We won't hint too much.
Actually, I think we do want to kind of hint. We want to kind of build a little bit of
sure. All right.
So with the idea of next week is we're actually everyone's kind of done all the interviews of say Olof Meister and everyone like that, right? And all the big names have all been done to death. We wanted to go to Sweden and interview someone a little bit more interesting, someone who hasn't been interviewed ever on camera before. So we actually got with Lecro and from the new Fnatic lineup, obviously. He was a former Godsend player. So we've got a really, really cool interview coming with him next week. So that's when we'll bring that. So we're just kind of putting that together still, but obviously we can't drop all the bombs in 1 week. We've got 3 pieces to go. So this week we Semmler, next week
we're not as savage as the Americans in the war.
And we'll kind of be comparing the young blood versus the new blood, the young blood versus the old blood. We're going to kind of compare him, and we've got into Get Right as well. So it's going to be some really interesting bits and pieces.
Yeah, no, I think the Lecro one I'm excited at. Listen, I've been an advocate for him. I should probably have reconsidered this decision to wear shorts when I'm sitting on a couch, but look, it's summer. I did buy new socks, by the way, but I'm not wearing them, so. I've been advocating Lecro quite a bit. There's been a few players throughout my casting career that I've seen. This is not meant to be a gloat, by the way, because there's been other players that I've seen. I think Akis is a great player. He's never broken through and may never will, but there's been a few players I've seen that I've spotted early enough and thought were great and have turned out to be in that realm. Nitro was one. His short tenure on iBuyPower when he was the top fragging North American player at an ESEA LAN in December of 2014 before the bans came through. Desi was on that team as well. He left again for that. They played the major, and then Desi was out for that particular ESEA LAN. I thought Nitro was incredible then, and I saw bright things for him. I see the same potential in Lecro. I really do. And he's been a little bit wavering so far with them, but I'm very excited for what he's going to bring to
He had that
team.
amazing breakout performance at DreamHack Malmo. Obviously, that's probably the best event Godson ever went to. Didn't really do much after that, but we've seen what he can be capable of. That's probably a discussion we should save all for next week, but this is a little bit of a sneak preview for you. But we are going to get into this week's show. Before we do that, just a shout out to the sponsors. Obviously, Space Jam Juice, that's what I'm vaping. Very nice stuff. We've got Fnatic gear as well, Darkin, and Twitch, of course, bringing this all together for us.
I haven't worn my Twitch shirt in a while.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be Twitch, bitch.
Yeah, why not? And the show wouldn't be possible without them, so please support them, follow them, do whatever you can to help us out. But without further ado, Matt, we've got a list of topics to go through this week.
We do. There was something else that we mentioned. I was just going to, as we did our loose intro, I was going to bring up, but I can't remember what it was now. So yeah, let's do the show.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Obviously next week. That's what we were on. I was just going to say next week we're obviously going to Kiev as well. So we've got, as you mentioned, the Lekro piece kind of coming. There's going to be some other stuff shot at Starladder, and it'll be the first time we do a remote show as well. So just to watch out for that. That's all I was going to mention. We can get into this week. We can go back to the present.
Let's get back into the present. Okay, so last night, there was something very interesting going on in the Pro League in North America. I think everyone's seen it now. If you've been on Reddit in the last 10 hours, you would have seen it all exploding. Obviously, Renegades beating SK 2-0, but one of those results was a 16-0. That's obviously very interesting in itself. I think that it was obvious that SK were just playing complete shit then. When you watched the game, it just didn't seem like they're themselves at all.
I tweeted out after watching one particular round when it was, I think, 11-0 at the time. Two players pushed long, CT side. I think it was coldzera and maybe Taco. I can't remember. And they literally just rushed around the corner. They were late getting there, so clearly someone's going to be in the A cave watching it with an op or AK, whatever. They don't flash. They just run around, and Cold's got his back turned, like waiting for a flash, and they both just die instantly. I think JKS hit one shot, Azur hit the other, and like, when have you ever seen SK not throw a fucking grenade?
Yeah.
I've never seen them play that loose of CS ever, including X Games when we were introduced to them and they were kaboom. Remember then they threw the smokes out on Mirage, stunned Cloud9 16-4. I've never seen this.
What's also weird about this as well, that SK just finished a massive boot camp with Na'Vi as well. So people can't really say that they're rusty right now, they're out of practice. Obviously they have Showtime filling in for them, but they've had a boot camp for what? It was like a week-long thing. It was very publicised, big deal going on. Like, I can't remember who sponsored it. Was it Hyprex or something like that? It was basically
Hyprex did it. Yeah,
it was a big sponsored
Wild West or whatever.
it was a big sponsored thing.
Shootout.
So the thing is that to say they're out of practice is a little bit redundant in my opinion. The fact they should be ready for this. But what was interesting, the results interesting itself, but what was more interesting was the fallout from this, especially with a young man called coldzera.
Arguably world number one. This is not a way to behave for world number one.
We've got some tweets on him, Matthew. You were following this drama.
Yeah.
Can you explain it
So
to us?
obviously someone lashed out. There was a pic of coldzera, and I think the pic was actually in reference to the tweet, which is coming up in a second, but he says, "Shut up, fairy kid." And then Richard Lewis, who's more than experienced in the art of messing up on Twitter, suggests you don't really want to be doing this. More so for Cold than Richard. Richard's on his own. He's freelance. And coldzera is tied to a massive organization which has sponsorship, etc. There have been professional athletes that have acted in this regard and lost sponsorship.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Michael Phelps got caught with marijuana. Now, I don't promote drugs. I've never smoked it in my entire life. But it's not even that, in today's society, it's not that big of a deal. He lost a Kellogg sponsorship worth millions. Nike threatened to pull out on him. You got coldzera saying far worse than that on the internet right now, and this is the kind of stuff esports needs to grow the fuck up and get over, because I don't lose respect for people often, but Cold, I'm sorry, that's pretty sore loser.
Conversation we had last week, though. I think it was last week when Yanko was on. We were kind of discussing these aren't trained PR professionals. These are basically young kids that are playing computer games, right? And now they're making up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, winning big prize tournaments and like having a lot of exposure. And they're still human beings at the end of the day, right? And they're going to have this access to vent themselves. And then they've got all this hate coming in as well through the social media. We kind of discussed that idea of it's a different landscape to when like the likes of I was playing like 5 or 6 years ago. You didn't have this interaction with the public unless you wanted to. You had to go looking for it, right? He just goes on his Twitter now and he can see people saying, oh, I can't believe you lost this, haha, all this stuff like that. And you can see him reacting to it. Obviously, a horrible thing to do, but at the end of the day, he is a young man and he does have feelings and emotions, but obviously he needs to realise this is not acceptable, and he's actually deleted his Twitter. I'm not sure if he's deleted the right word, maybe just deactivated it for now.
I think it's deactivated because on regular Twitter, it doesn't show up, but TweetDeck, which uses a different search mechanism, it actually does still show. You just can't click it, which tells me that the account still exists.
I'd be mad to actually delete it. I'd like ruin like 2 years' work building up a huge social following.
Yeah, and a lot of those people will not follow over. I hate to say, there's a lot of people that go inactive on Twitter, and you lose numbers out of that regardless, plus the verified tag, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, this is... By the way, just people saying in chat, I do see you there. Someone was saying, isn't Richard Lewis associated with the E-League? He is, but at the time, and he's cleaned up his act because of that, point in case, I guess, or case in point, whatever the expression is, because at the time that he was acting out and lashing out, he was freelance at that point. So that was all the point I was making. But Cold, I mean, that's incredible, and we'll talk more about the game itself, because I think Renegades deserve some credit as well. They played a very good Dust 2 game. I think Sponge, if he's not still doing it, just did a breakdown on that game. Remember, they got 16-0'd by Luminosity last year, so this is revenge. But the other tweets we saw, and this is what I can't believe. I mean, Cold says something along the lines of, and I know you had the translations there, Tom, in one of the tweets. Something along the lines is it's extremely hard. First off, like, they didn't just 16-0 on Nuke or on Dust. They lost on Nuke having the lead. Now that I won't read too much into. It is Nuke still after all, but they started basically fighting then and tilted then. And apparently Cold says something along the lines of fall and tilt so much we don't even want to play Dust 2. Okay, keep that internal. First off, you don't want that public knowledge. You might say, listen, we had a little argument, we apologize, but save face at least. Don't make it public that you had a massive dispute as a team. And then goes on to say, it's hard to play CS or hard to win on CT side when you're playing with someone. Not only did he say that, let me just go back a little bit, mention that he carries 2 majors on his back. That says he's getting a little bit ahead of himself. His head is swelling. It's definitely going to his head. And he's almost become, in this sense, with these tweets, a bit of a diva, I think. This is diva-ish. So to say he's carried 2 majors, bullshit. That was a team effort through and through. And Fallen's done an excellent job with that team, as did Zeus coaching, as did Taco in clutch moments, as did Furs and FNX. I almost forgot him, I apologize. But everyone was involved in that. It's not just Cold. And then he says it's hard to play when you're playing with someone who doesn't understand the basic fundamentals of CS. Okay, look, he may not be on your team, but this does not. You didn't win a fucking round. I'm pretty sure, Henry, if I was queuing with you and Yanko in matchmaking, we could have won 1 round. That's not an excuse. A stand-in is not an excuse to win 0 rounds.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's despicable, the way he's actually approached the situation. Whatever your feelings may be, why does that have to be vented in the public? Does that make you feel better about it? You're trying to justify something, saying, look guys, it wasn't my fault. Obviously this guy doesn't understand CS. Like, the whole thing about the Brazilian scene is just with the camaraderie, they're all helping each other out, they're kind of like best friends, all live in the same kind of area, they're visiting each other, and then as soon as he gets a chance, oh, thanks for helping us out, thanks for working for us, by the way, fuck you, you've actually ruined this game for us. Like, that's what's really upsetting about that. Regardless of what you think, keep it to yourself and work on it for the next game. The fact he's gone on Twitter and actually completely wrecked that guy, like, imagine the hostility that must be in that room after that.
Yeah, well, exactly that. The guy's in the house with him. This is an opportunity for Showtime to try and promote himself, because he's already been removed from Immortals, who, by the way, are doing well. Credit to them. We'll talk about North America a little bit in terms of standings, but that's just demoralizing. And how do they even recover from this? Quickly, this is why it's good we have chat. Apparently the translation was inaccurate. It doesn't say I carried 2 majors. It's an expression meaning he's won 2 majors. Which,
right, okay,
that I'll retract that comment, because if that's what it says, fair enough. But either way, it's still a little bit ahead of himself to even speak this way. And you've done so much for Brazilian Counter-Strike, this team. So much. They brought in 2 other teams that are doing well now. You've got Immortals, Luminosity now picked up, and arguably Generation X, which is starting to make a case for themselves. You've built a Brazilian scene to the point where ESL said, you know what? Let's have a Pro League final in Brazil. You guys may not even be fucking part of that final if you don't start playing CS. And you've got to do it with Showtime. And if you're not going to do it with Showtime, what are you going to do? Bring Zeus over for that time? He just signed a contract with Immortals, who are 10-4 and sitting in second in the league right now. They're not going to give him up easily.
Yep. It's a very interesting time. I think obviously it's quite early days in Pro League. I think they definitely will get to what you need, top 4. I think that'll still be fine. Like, this is obviously a bump in the road, but just like you said, like, credit where credit is due for Renegades. Like, that's an amazing result for them after like various line of roles switches. They've just gone over to Detroit Renegades as well. We kind of discussed that last week. This is actually kind of exciting for them. Like, a new start, fresh organisation, and then kind of getting straight in, beating the world's #1 team. I think we saw Fur on Twitter kind of released today that he had his first operation, so yep. I don't think he'll be back anytime soon, but like, I think everything's kind of positive for over the next month, maybe. That could be happening.
With a scheduled surgery, and it sounds like what's a standard procedure. Obviously, it's not a common issue, but it's a standard procedure. this isn't about Furr's got to hurry up and get healthy. No, that's a defined timeline. He'll be out until he's out. So fans saying, Furr, you got to come back. Sorry guys, this is a medical recommendation based on studies and experience in the field. It's not an injury to Pith where it's he can recover sooner or later. This is a set timeline. So, and as well, I want to touch on that too because a lot of people are saying, well, he's been playing. Oh no, sorry, that's Pitt. Okay, I thought someone was saying he's been playing FPL. That's Pitt that I saw, but that's also fair because it's 1 hour a day. So,
well, anyway, I don't want to read too much into this one. I saw another link saying there was some sort of periscope of like a big, like some sort of. I don't want to use the word fight, but there's a big argument in the room as well that went out on Periscope with that team. I didn't see it myself, so I can't even speculate as to whether that's true, but I did see some links going around that. So if that was going on Periscope as well, this has just been a horrible night in the office for SK as a whole. Like this whole thing. I looked on their Twitters today. I think like most of the stuff's been deleted. I didn't see any sort of response from Fallen's Twitter today. I think he may have deleted or not even commented on the situation, but still, it's what a night of CS that was. I actually didn't catch the game. I'm gonna have to go back and watch those VODs and see exactly what happened. But like we know, it's like there's been some really weird results at online CS recently. There's been plenty of those, and a loss is a loss. You got 2-0. Just you got to concentrate on next week. I just don't think the social media is the best way to go about these things. No,
absolutely not. And I mean, as you say, and this is like even I can concede the point. I kind of argued that in esports we're a little bit too tied to social media, which is by nature making these problems exist. But you're right. I think PR management has to be a thing, and you know what, if there's going to be a league that's going to bring structure, I dare say it might be E-League at this point in time because of they're coming in and putting the foot down, they're showing authority. They're a very large organization that doesn't rely on pleasing everyone. Let's face it, they've got lots more going on that's more profitable than CS. They're doing this because they want to do it right, and they might be the ones to bring in the PR training. I know ESL has Anna, I think her name is, that does, I know when we do interviews, her and Kristen?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I can't remember. Anyway, they escort us over, and basically Anna will ask us, is there anything you don't want them to ask you? Is there anything that you need clarified? I know ECS said, just because of the way the prize pool was growing, they said mention that it's over $1 million. Don't mention the specifics of it. Like, there's very little things they do tell you, but that's only at their events. This isn't training to say, okay, you lost this game, you need to respond, save face, say well played to Renegades or something along those lines. There's no coaching to that degree in that sense.
I think it's just common sense at the end of the day, going in and calling people.
It is. No, you're right.
Fairies. And
but that's where emotions get the better.
Things like that, like that. Yeah, but that's just still like you should know. But when you're typing that out. Like, Matt, you're an advocate for giving your opinion on Twitter.
Yeah, and fuck everyone.
You're like you've been known to do that in the past and causing some controversial tweets. I'm sure you'll admit that. But I don't think you'd ever go to kind of slurs like that on social media, right? Like that's a bit too much. Right?
I've called people out for things, but usually like within reason and to a specific incident. I've never just straight up blasted someone, and I can't ever see me going to that degree. If I have that much beef with someone, I'll go to them directly. Every time, because that's why make that public in the first place? Not only does it make you look foolish, but it's not the public's business, about shut up. Tom, you are pushing it today, sir.
Just turn the phone off if you have to. Anyway,
get your Twitter girls under control, Tom.
So what was I going to say?
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, I lost my thought. That's been good to finish off with. Anyway, that pretty much covers it, I think. But yeah, interesting night of the NATS. That's the thing. We were up till what, like 1 a.m. casting EU stuff, so we kind of do miss out. Apparently, you were up for some reason, like 3 a.m. But
well, Tom was still editing, so I was laying. I sleep literally just right here. Tom sits here. Our editing computers are here, so I sleep in the studio because just esports. So I was just sitting there, and I figured, listen, if I'm just gonna be laying in bed listening to Final Fantasy piano music, yep, that's what I do. I might as well watch the game, and it was like I say, it was already atrocious. Dust 2, by the way, is the same map that Fnatic 16-0'd them on.
Yes.
So I think they will forever avoid it at this point in time, just because of that reason.
What is the thing with SK and when they were Luminosity? They never played Dust 2. It was like one of their vetoes.
Not with this current roster.
Not with this current roster, but they started to bring it in. I think it was ECS when we were casting that league. That's when we started to see, we were casting NA stuff at that point.
Yep.
We were starting to see it come in, and they were getting some decent results, but it's really hard to gauge. Like, it was obviously online CS against some lower tier NA teams where they seemed comfortable on it. And you'd think with the talent they have and the all potential with Cold Era and Fallen, they'd be really sick at that map. Like, that's like, it really lends itself to good aimers and explosive playstyles and good AWPers. Like, it doesn't take much to actually execute too efficiently. most of the teams have the same tactics. It's just about good mid-round calls. You've got the best in-game leader. You'd think Dusty would be a really profitable map for them, but apparently not. But anyway, that's probably that all covered. Interesting times, definitely for SK. So we move on to the next bit. It's going to be...
Yeah, can we mod Room on Fire real quick in the chat? That'd be cool.
We can. So then...
I just want to touch really quickly. You know, you talk about your relationship. I'm trying to just make an analogy for this. Everything's great. Oh, I love you, honey. I love you. Everything's great. You're building the relationship. It builds, it strengthens, so long as everything's good. In this way, the Brazilian team, they've always had a rise. Everything's always been good. They've had a few games here and there, but they've never hit a rough patch. They've never had the fight that every relationship, I've never been in a relationship, but every relationship talks about. Could this be something that actually strengthens them, or is this like a breaking point? Like, how do we see this actually translating? And if they get this far off track when they bring back Fur, is it too much to recover?
It's definitely not going to help. I think for the next few weeks, it's going to be really difficult for them. This will be in the back of their heads of every game they go into now. And Fallen's going to be worried about, okay, what's Coldzera going to do? He's a loose cannon right now. Don't want to upset him. Don't prod him. Just let him be. Just let him get on with it. They've talked about it. Water under the bridge and all that. I think it'll be okay overall. I think this obviously has been blown out of proportion because of the stuff he said. It is ultimately just a bad result, and every team has them. It's just the stuff he did on social media has made this really awkward for everyone involved, right? I feel like they will bounce back. They're a world-class team. They're the world champions 2 times in a row. You know, it's going to be absolutely fine. When Fur comes back in as well, it'll just be like they'll be revitalised, ready to go. I think the problem is now, showtime, I'd be telling them to fuck off. I'd be like, you know what, if you're going to just throw me under the bus on Twitter like that, like, do you really want me to stay here and just... You think I don't even know the fundamentals of CS? Like, that's a bit rude, you know. Like, that's a bit too much. I think that would be a really hostile environment now, even for practice. Imagine going to the practice room the next day, saying, right, let's watch demos back and stuff like that, and you're just there, it's like, all right, I'm not really motivated anymore to actually be a merc for your team. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some switch. I mean, we see teams do it all the time, switching stand-ins. And I think that's a perfect transition. So I'm curious to see, look, we'll have to watch it carefully. I was about to call them Luminosity. SK is going to have to pull up their socks. They are now in a position of recovery for the season. Not to mention in North America, Cloud9. Okay, I guess we could segue twice here. I was going to do the stand-ins thing and talk about Michael Ailey, but let's just stay with North America for a second. Cloud9, 14-0.
Not bad.
That's
pretty much locked in now for the finals.
Yeah, they just have to ride out the rest of the season. If you look at this roster, I was thinking about this last night, and I have even fallen into I dismiss Cloud9 much like everybody else. They became the meme, right? 2015, so long ago, the summer of 2015. I even think now at this point in time that I'm impressed with what they've got. If you think about their roster, nothing. Inconsistent, sure, but he can go off at any minute. Bring in Stewie, tons of skill. Works his ass off, I have to say, by the way. He's one player that he got all the flack, he's an onliner, he's a pug star. He came in and worked his balls off. Shroud, inconsistent, but he can go off at any minute. We know he's got skill. Skadoodle, inconsistent, but can go off at any minute. If these guys start all hitting shots, they're going to be untouchable in this sense. And now they've got Automatic, which is another extremely skilled player. They've never had 5 very skilled fraggers at one time, and now they do.
You have to remember, like, they became a meme in the last year, maybe. If you go back to mid-2015, they were a world-class team there. They were getting to semi-finals, finals of a lot of events. Like, there was that amazing run they had, starting, I think, like DreamHack Valencia. They got to the grand final versus TSM at the time, and it was actually... semi-final. I think Fnatic was in the final. Yeah, that's right. But Cloud9 were getting to the semi-final of pretty much every event. Right? And they were a contender.
They were in the final of VSWC Montreal.
Yeah.
They were in 2 finals. I can't remember which 2.
Yeah,
I think they might have been in the final, the one you mentioned.
But regardless, these players are experienced at big events, right? They know exactly what they need to do to actually get to these grand finals and do it. But they've had a slump for now. But it seems like this is a nice recipe. They removed Slemmy, who was one of the newer signings, moved him into a more of analysis/coach role. That seems to be working out. He was always the brains behind the operation where they were lacking. And the problem is he was okay, but he was never going to get them over the points of being that world-class team again, right? So bringing in Automatic, like you said, you seem to be quite fond of this guy, like quite an explosive player.
We saw him at ECS finals when he was on TSM, and he was very consistent throughout the whole weekend. I think, if I'm not mistaken, his mouse sensitivity is crazy high.
Yeah.
If I'm also not mistaken, he uses wireless mouse. Was that him?
One of them was. I couldn't tell you if it was him, maybe.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, but let's talk about the questions from the results they've got ready. They've beaten
Doesn't like wireless.
They've been in Liquid 2-0, Immortal 2-0, Optic. Well, if you everyone 2-0, so regardless. Optic, Complexity, CLG, Renegades, and
Why does it only show one result for United?
oh, it's just second page.
Oh, right. There you go.
And so yeah, Liquid. That's a pretty awesome result for them. I think that would have been one of the first showings of Pimp coming in. So difficult to work out what's going on there. Obviously, not the same team we saw at the major getting into grand final, but still, that's still great results. Like 16-8, 16-10 is pretty impressive victories overall. That's not bad at all. And then Immortals, 16-14 versus them, 16-5 as well. So they seem to just be doing consistently well. They haven't played SK yet. That's going to be
but
considering the recent form, maybe
and
that's
SK
gonna be
lost 2-0 to Liquid, which they've never lost to Liquid before.
Yeah,
so that's, I mean, SK right now needs to pull up. I get that they're playing with a stand-in, but this isn't. Astralis played with two stand-ins, arguably the major maiden legendary status. It's on Lance a little different, sure, but you've got NIP, which.
Another good thing for Cloud9 is the finals in South America, so no jet lag stuff going on there.
Yeah.
It's all right. Everything's kind of coming together. This could be the one that we actually get a big win. But you never know. Like the form they're in right now is very, very impressive for them. I'm impressed. Like 14 wins, 0 losses.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm very excited to see now that we've got a few more lands coming up and we can actually start to monitor it. I might, and making a point as well while I'm playing Final Fantasy VII. I'm trying to 100% the game. I put an hour and a half into the game last night, forgot to get the Leviathan scales, and you can't go back to get them, so I had to redo that whole time. But as I'm playing it, I think I'm going to start watching a little more of the North American games because the other thing I really want to watch is Pimp coming into Liquid.
Yeah, me too. That's the problem with... because I'd love to watch everything in CS, but we have to cast the European stuff, right? We're there till sometimes 1 a.m. We have to plan this show, and I was in Sweden. Like I'm very busy to watch all of the CS going on, and especially if it's online CS. It's not high priority for me. If it's a LAN, I'll stay up for it, of course. But if it's just online CS, it's very difficult for me to justify not sleeping and having to go to work the next day. But I want to start watching some of those games if I can. And but like I said, we're moving apartments. Tomorrow?
We're actually, so just a shout out to Gosu Gamers and a huge thanks to them. We're moving into their spot,
which looks amazing.
It does look amazing.
So this studio it looks alright on camera. We do what we can with
Remember this. This is where it all began, but we're moving out of
humble
here.
beginnings, but we're going to like
the TV is gone.
Don't knock it off now. Not like this. We're going to like a really, really sick place. We won't be there next week. Obviously, we'll be in Kiev. I don't want to say what we'll be doing there. I don't think that's been announced. We're just going to be in Kiev, We'll be hanging out. There is a tournament going on there. So we'll just be visiting at the moment. Right, Matt?
Tom, do not mod Pansy. Just so you know.
So yeah, we've been Kiev. We're doing that's our first like on the ground show. We'll be like providing action. We're going to bring some sick interviews as well. We've got some like really awesome players agreeing to do stuff with us next week. There's amazing teams there, and that's going to be a really cool event. So we probably won't talk about this much in this show, but we want to kind of have a live show bringing all the information about that LAN as soon as we get there, right? So we'll leave that event until we're there.
Yeah, I think so.
A full
totally.
preview and everything like that.
Yeah. There's going to be some very cool stuff done at that event. I'm excited. That said, we did want to talk and kind of segue toward the stand-in aspect. So if SK can't win games, there is one team that has been winning them, and their stand-in has arguably been, I think, among their better players. I'd say Forest is the only one that's been close. Disco Doppler no longer playing with NIP. They're bringing back Ace.
I would say not out of choice, it seems. From my understanding, they would have liked to get Disco Doppler. I think it was pretty clear he was going to Star Ladder with them, and that was obviously this week, and he was like playing with the team. You wouldn't want to just change that up last minute, especially when he's playing very well. They've been winning games. There's no logical reason to say, oh, we don't want him anymore, we want Michael Ailey. And Michael can be good, but I think Disco, you tell you want someone who's going to listen to you and do everything you want. Michael's been known to be slightly hot-headed, maybe a little bit bullish sometimes. So you probably want the younger guy who just wants to be there and he's hungry to show himself, right? But obviously he's part of Epsilon organization, and I'm going to guess that they can't. They're happy to lend him out for online games, but if it's LAN, you're winning money with him, then you need to start paying, right? You need to start coughing up some dollar and actually say, well, still be contacted to us, but if you want to take him to a LAN and win cash for him, there's going to be some sort of exchange going on here, and I assume that's what's going on. It seems quite a last-minute thing to bring Michael in. They're going to have to boot camp now with him. I think we all wanted to see Disco at a LAN, right? We haven't seen him play top-tier CS yet at a LAN. We've seen him play at online level with NIP. We've seen him at Assembly do very well. Didn't win the event, but they had a good showing. I think that would have been amazing for his career, especially. But now he's been kind of thrown out, and it's like obviously we've had the PR releases saying, "Oh, thanks for his time. Thank you so much, Epsilon, letting us use him, but we're not going to." I think that's just kind of sugarcoating everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, when did we touch on this? I think it was during the long delay we had before the Mouse Sports game. Was that last night or 2 nights ago? Yeah. And I said it then. The one thing that I'm very hopeful for is that Epsilon is being treated fairly. We've seen this happen. Luminosity with the Brazilian, well, they have a Brazilian team again, but with SK is one such example where a team kind of outgrows its original worth when you sign the contract. Yep. And you need to make sure you have a deal that grows fairly with them. Now, I'm not saying Epsilon has grown to an incredible height, but they're in the top 20. They are a rising team. There are new players, and you become a farm team in that sense. And if your contract was signed without consideration for expansion and growth, your buyouts could be unfair. Situations like this, where they could just veto, sorry, you can't play with them anymore, which takes away promotional opportunity for an individual player. I really hope those contracts are fair from Epsilon, and I do really hope that that newer players aren't being taken advantage of. Again, I'd like to see someone come in who's an agent and represent the players correctly in that sense, especially newer players in that regard.
This is definitely the thing, especially when you're a young team, you haven't got an org, and you get approached like someone of Epsilon, a lot of CS pedigree behind that name. It's obviously very exciting, and you just want to sign the contract. You've probably been offered a small salary, and you think, I'm a professional player now. And you probably might not think of every sort of scenario. You don't think, it's a 1.5 year contract, that's probably fine. We're going to build this team, we're going to be amazing. But eventualities do dictate, especially for these lower side teams that have great players, great talent, they're just going to be a farming team for the top squads, right? Like teams like NIP and then Godsend, for example, they'll be looking out for this younger talent. And unfortunately, if you're a lower team with great players, that's just a reality. That's just going to be happening. So for Epsilon, you can say what you like, but it's a wise business decision from their behalf. They know that they've got great talent there. They're going to protect their players. And if they do put them under contracts, and it's as long as they're not getting screwed over, it's as long as they say, okay, it's a 1 year contract, this is your buyout, you'll get a salary, you'll get everything you need to actually get this exposure. The buyout's still possible. I don't think this is Epsilon necessarily doing anything wrong. We could speculate what we like, but I've been in an organisation, I was in them for a year, and they were always pretty fair with me. I can't remember any sort of disputes. I think they know what they're doing, they've got a business team behind them and stuff. So I think this is just a case of it's them just protecting their worth, they want to make sure they keep the players and not just give them out for free, which is fair. And
that's fair as well. But again, my point was just I want to make sure it's fair both ways. Yeah, it needs to be equal treatment, right? Of course. And I just throw that out there. Yeah. I was kind of hoping Disco might actually flourish with them a little bit further, because I still think that a roster change might help NIP in that sense. And when you compare, as you mentioned, Michael Lele was already in this team at one point, and you could argue that was actually more contributional than Alu in some ways, because he was more flashy. Yeah. Alu's kind of playing more that way with FaZe right now, but at the time on NIP, they wouldn't give him that freedom, and Michael Lele kind of just took it and was more of a make play happen. If you remember, until Malmo, their most previous win was Michael Lele's last tournament with them at Asus Winter 2015 after X Games. It was the first weekend in February, and that was the last time they won. They never won a tournament with Alu, and Michael Lele was actually MVP of that tournament. But the reasons they left, it wasn't the skill. It was just like you said, he could be. I don't want to code him with the toxic term. Yeah. But he can be strong-minded, I think.
Yeah, I used the word bullish. I think that.
Yeah, bullish. I think is accurate, because the thing is with Michael Lele is if you look at the two, Disco Doppelin and Mike. Disco Doppelin, I think, has better fundamentals, and that's why he's able to play a role very well, but also make plays, just because he's very smart about what he's doing. Whereas Michael's more headstrong, bullish. He'll go and just make the fight, make the peak, and if it doesn't work, well, I tried. Sorry. It's not fundamental. It's more trying to be a little bit too aggressive at times, and I think that NIP didn't want that. I think there was arguments within because of it, and not only that, his personality. NIP's pretty mild in terms of their personalities. All of them are pretty chill dudes. They're all kind of, I don't want to say beta alpha, whatever, but they're more laid back, right? And Michael's way more intense. Yo, what up? I'm Michael Lele. You know what I mean? He's got more of that
swagger.
It's more external. He's more extroverted in that sense than the other guys.
Well, it's gonna be interesting. We get to see them play tonight in Pro League, I think, against Mouse Sports. I think that's the matchup, NIP versus Mouse Sports. So that'll be interesting. We get to probably cast that, and we can work out what's going on there, kind of gauge him out. It's interesting because Michael, obviously, he left FaZe. Well, I say left, kicked, left doesn't matter. It left in April. It's 5 months ago. And I thought the idea was, like when Zelos left Epsilon, which has happened recently, the in-game leader, I thought Mike would be building a team around that kind of tier of players. We'd be bringing Palf back, bring Zelos in, and kind of have a look around that kind of idea. That's what I assumed was be happening. But now he's announced he's back in NIP. Well, not back, he's working for them, right? But this is kind of contradictory to what I thought would be going on. I thought he'd be focusing on his own project. But I guess this is probably good advertisement for him, show what he's made of. But
Gets a paycheck for it, I'm sure, too.
And he's been saying recently on social media that he wants to be the AWPer again. Like, he's been tweeting a few times saying, I'll be working with AWP, this is what I'm about.
He is better with the AWP, in my opinion, than the rifle.
And we'll see, because right now, NIP are very happy with Forrest being the AWP. And he actually does a pretty sterling job, to be fair. Like, you can't really argue with the work he does with that. He's definitely not a world's best AWPer, but in terms of him as a player, very, very intelligent, knows when he has to peak, knows what he has to do to win rounds. That's what's important. They're winning rounds with him. He's not getting the sick highlight clips, but he's doing enough. He's finding the picks here and there, and he's doing enough to win them big rounds in the game. So I think that would be crazy to knock Forrest off the AWP so close to an event. Michael's just going to have to fit in, whether he likes it or not. He's going to have to do what they say. It's too little time to actually say, we can't build around you, Michael. It's not going to be the case here. You're going to have to actually do what we say. I think that's fair. I think Michael can be the secondary AWPer. Obviously, that was Pitt's role, and he's not here right now. So that still gives him some options to have some play with that weapon. Yep. But I don't know. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play tonight. That's what I want to see, and see what happens there. Obviously, it's a shame we didn't get to see Disco Doppler. We tried to catch up with him in Sweden, actually. That would have been really interesting to see how his thoughts were before this all happened. I don't think he saw it coming. I don't think anyone did. And yeah, I'm sure we can shed some light on it next week. And hopefully our videos we've got, it will give some sort of insight as to where NIP were before that happened. We caught up with Get Right. We kind of discussed how it's going with Disco Doppler, what he likes about him, what makes him a good player. So we've got some really good insight as to what they like about it. And we talked about the whole younger generation of Swedish CS as well, how much talent there is available right now, the Godsend Fnatic thing being a massive talking point as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works out. But just to finish on the Michael Eddie thing as well, in terms of how I think that's going to go for them, I don't think they would have been as good as they were with Disco Doppler. I think that was just a really nice fit. I think he came into the team really nicely. I can't even speculate how it's going to go with Michael in there. I think they've got very little time now to make things happen. It's going to be a boot camp with threats, trying to piece everything together in the last minute. He's got a few days now they're going to have to work really hard this weekend and work out 7 maps to do, fit him in everywhere. They're going to have 2 go-to VTs, people to work them out pretty quickly at the event. They're going to have a troublesome time there, I think. I think if they can get top 4, maybe that would be possible, but they're going to be struggling there. Yeah.
No, I think, and we'll discuss that event a little bit more in detail, but you're right. This is a tough position for them to be in. Good news is that there's some familiarity to it. It is the same 5 that we saw at the end of 2014, early 2015, so maybe there's something they can pull out of that, but that didn't involve threat and the more tactical style that they have now.
Much different game they have to go into.
Yeah, exactly. The meta shifted, the round time shifted, guns are different in many ways, including the AWP, which back then wasn't nerfed at that time. So there's a lot of differences. Obviously, they've all played the game. They all know them. Just before, I think we'll transition. I think that's a good coverage on that. Just before we do go into the lovely feature that we've got for this week, featuring none other than the Swagger Semmler, I want to touch again quickly on G2. They as well are in recovery mode, and CT sides have been abysmal. Now, after, what was the first map? They played Dust 2, Cash. After Cash, I thought if the Cincinnati Zookeeper needed a new job, they were looking for a sniper, because Smith's was complete dog shit on that map, okay? And thankfully Dust 2 is his playground and he was able to step it up, but they were, like, that was a huge missing piece. He couldn't find a single pick to open the round, to the point where Shocks took the rifle from him.
It was...
When is something going to happen where he either finds a style where they implement him better, or they start winning some CT sides?
The thing is, right,
Scream was off too, to be fair.
He was. I think it was only... They had okay, let's just dissect that game from the beginning. T-side, they start T-side, they win the pistol, they give a decent game. It's not the best showing from them of all time, but Body stepping up, like head and shoulders above everyone else. He wins like 2 or 3 clutches. One of them was like a 1v4, like he's going absolutely ham. It's probably the best performance you've ever seen from Body. They get 10-5 just about for all those clutches, right? I think that's enough. It's T-side of Cash. That's a very good half overall, all things considered. But we said to it going into halftime, but oh God, they've got to go to CT now. Surely they're not going to be as bad on CT as they have been recently. And I said, if Mouse win the pistol, I don't know what's going to happen. It could all fall to hell again. And sooner or later, they swap over. And of course, it is a pistol. And everything just looks abysmal. They're force buying a lot. The rounds they have the AWP, it's just not having any efficiency whatsoever. It's Smith's, like you said. he's got to be the player opening things up, right? He's got to be the AWPer in a world-class team. You need to have the confidence to go for these faces, hit these shots, and have enough to actually shut them down. Everywhere he was going, getting absolutely one-banged by SMGs and AKs finding him all over the place. And like you said, at one point, Shox had to say, look, mate, you're not doing your job. I'll take the AWP. And he did it in the first round. Shox does it. He goes and finds the opening pick. So for a player like Smiths, who's the main AWPer, and he's only hitting, 5 frags in total? That's
unacceptable.
After the first half as well, he had 5 frags, and then going to the CT half towards the end, he still had like maybe 6 or 7. And
T-side cash, there's a lot of opening positions that you can play if you're an aggressive AWPer, but Smiths isn't always that style.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams will still run 5 rifles on that map. I know Liquid was one, for example, even when they had a Dren who was playing that primary role.
Yeah.
At Simple, it was a little bit different, and now with JDM, obviously, it's very different, but there are teams that have tried to run that style, and IP as well has done it. And look, I can say, okay, you get single digits T-side, but CT side on cash.
They're very influential. That's when the AWPers need to be doing something. The idea of the AWP on that map is you don't go to middle every single round. You don't say, I play mid. You've got to be intelligent on the cash CT side. You need to be working out what are the nuances from the T side, where are they favouring, where are they working their defaults, and you need to be there to shut it down. You have to work out how they're approaching mid. Are they using Molotovs towards sandbags? Are they using smokes towards highway? You need to work out what's going to be the best position for you to get that first frag. If you're getting shut down middle, okay, well, it's not worth me going into that. I'm going to go towards B. I know there's someone lurks over there. I'll get that pick. I'll go towards squeaky door. I'm doing something beneficial to the team. Even if you have to go really passive towards quad, which Smith was doing, he just couldn't hit the shots towards highway, like really simple shots of people just running out with their knives running to connector. He couldn't land it. And I'm not sure the solution is there, whether they're still rusty right now, but the CT sides really need to improve. They look great on the T sides. Most of the time, they look fine. Like Navi in the earlier stages of Pro League, they got 11-4 on the T side of Dust 2. Couldn't hit a barn door on the second half. Just nothing would happen for them. Screen was very poor there on Cash as well. But to be fair, they did bounce back on Dust 2.
And Smiths did as well. But that map, I have to say, for whatever reason, he's dead consistent on. He is very good on Dust 2. In fact, I would put him in the top 3 AWPers on Dust 2.
Yeah, that's his playground, we always say, right? And he did do well there, to be fair. But these results, they need to start picking up for them. They can't allow themselves to have those poor, horrible CT halves again and again. It can't just be an ongoing thing. It's just like, that's not even a rut. That's like the team are playing fine. They're winning T sides. Why can't we convert this to CT side victories? It doesn't make any sense. They've got great Arsenal players, great aimers, great clutchers, and shots and scream as well. RPK's in great form.
He's wicked. He's consistent form. He's quietly going about things, and it's. We also have to touch on it. Body last night. 1 versus 4, but a 5-man ace clutch. Yeah. And 3 HP, the guy's stepped into his own. I'm extremely thrilled to see it. It's very cool to see a newer talent stepping up in that regard, and he's definitely made himself a home in that team. Point I was going to make, we won't go on that too much, that's all there is to say. He's playing great, congratulations. Is at what point the Envious, who are having a decent season in Pro League, they're still in the mix for sure. If things don't change, does he go to G2 and Smiths gets the boot? I know Shox and Smiths' relationship is quite close. Kenny and he had never played together, but could you imagine?
I could.
Let's just theorize for a moment.
I don't know. I think Body's... The thing is, he needs to have another good LAN performance going forward. I think like online games are fine, but if you're still not winning them, that effort is almost redundant, unfortunately. Like you could say,
it's not on him though.
Yeah, of course, but it's a team game, right? And it's great. He's playing really well, but they're not winning the games. It's like, I remember that time Body played really well. Yeah, but they lost. Yeah, but he did play well, didn't he? It's like when the whole package comes together and he's still performing, it's not screaming Shox delivering everything in the games they're winning, then I'll start to be more impressed. I want to see some big events coming forward. So definitely a player to watch. He's had his up and downs. He's had some shocking performances. He's had some really good ones. That's why it's still inconsistent right now. It's still difficult for him. To be fair, he does his role well. Like the only problem is like he's always anchoring bomb sites by himself, right? So he's always on the back foot of if they go to the other side, he's rotating into like a disadvantage, or sometimes he's by himself on bomb sites trying to do what he can, getting 1 kill. It's never going to be the situation where you're getting the big highlight reel frags, right? You're doing a role, and he does it pretty well, to be fair, and he does fill the role efficiently, I think. But I'm interested to see how they recover going forward.
All right, there's lots of events coming up we're going to talk about, and we're going to get to a break in a minute. Should we do video straight to intermission, or should we do video and talk about it? How do you want to do this?
Video, then talk about it, then we go into upcoming LANs. It's a nice way to finish it. So we'll do the video, quick discussion, 5-10 minutes. Then intermission.
Quick intermission. All right, that's how we'll do it. So I've got my, I didn't plan this, but I just thought I'd be hilariously punny, guys, because my jokes are pretty cringe. I've got my coffee because we've got Semmler.
This is the longest period of time that I've had off for the past, I think, year and a half now. Mainly the focus has just been on projects that I've been having in the pipeline for quite some time. Coffee and Semmler is one thing that we just started. And then obviously Room on Fire, that's been the main thing that we've been focused on. Right now, I think the scene is in flux. We're still waiting to see the impact that the Valve ruling on gambling has had on the viewership. That's definitely going to feed into the tournament organizers. This is how their business runs. And so if viewership takes a big dip, you know, things are going to get interesting. I don't think that we've seen as big a dip as some people thought would come after the immediate ruling, but we've yet to really see. I think it's going to be a long-term thing. Are we stable now? Are we set? Is this our plateau and this is what we can expect the viewership to stay at? Or is the crash still coming? I think that, okay, skin gambling is gone, but this has opened a massive window for the real money gambling. And so if you were gambling before with skins, okay, you spent 275, 253 euros on a key. Well, what stops you from putting those 3 euros onto a real money betting site? Not a lot, right? So I don't think that this is the end of the world. I think this is where we see what we're made of. So I'm not gonna make any fans, right, by saying this, but I think that Valve are moving in the right direction and that in general, they are handling things correctly because what they're doing is they're catering to their player base. And right now, it seems like the CSGO player base are incredibly jealous of other player bases. They point to StarCraft 2, like, look at the involvement of David Kim, etc. Like, that feels like a trap to me because now Blizzard have like kind of trapped themselves into that where they're a hostage to their community. And this is what the CSGO developers, I think, are trying to avoid, is that they have a vision for the game and they need to make decisions based off of millions of players. And on Reddit, we have 400,000 subs, right? And maybe, let's say 50% of those subs are vocal and posting on the Reddit, right? Making posts, comments, content, etc., right? You take those 200,000 people versus the 10 million plus unique players that you have in a month, and who are you really catering to? Who's paying your bills? Right? Do I look committed? So the pros have a right to feel angry about the coach change. But, and again, this comes back to my previous point, Valve own the IP, they own the tournaments, they decide how they want their game to be played, because at the end of the day, they have the golden gun, which is why ESL, for example, who want majors in the future, are going to constantly flex and change. And the pros will hum and haw over this for, you know, ages, right? But at the end of the day, it's been made clear months ago that the devs did not want the coach to be the in-game leader. And they've even taken steps towards that, saying that the coach will not have a PC at majors. I think that a player should be the in-game leader and that it shouldn't be the coach. I did find it interesting that it was one player who could be the brain of it all and be that superior player, right, who could really just get a full feel for the field, make the decisions, still be able to play in game. That was a superior player to me, right? And so I always thought that that was the more beautiful approach. Apparently there is going to be a coach and Valve developer meeting. We'll see if Valve actually backtrack on the decision. I don't think that they will, but we'll see how things develop. So the plans for Room on Fire right now as it stands is to establish a platform. And so right now we're starting with this group of commentators, talent analysis. We're going to create content and we're going to create a promotion platform here. And then once this is settled and sorted, we're going to start looking at the bigger picture, which is the guild, the union, whatever you want to call it, but that would be open to freelance commentators to try and establish standards, right? To offer workshops and training to develop commentary, right? And to basically say, if you are a part of this group, there's a certain like stamp, seal of approval, right? That you have been trained, that you are of a certain level of professionalism. And so when it comes to an event organizer, if they look at, you know, anybody who's a part of this group, they know that I'm getting a professional who knows what to do and try to establish basically a minimum. It's just commentators with commentators, and we figure out how to help each other improve and go from there.
So there you go, lots of information. The selfie at the end was sent to me to show me how much fun you guys were having while I was playing Final Fantasy VII. Lots of information. First thing, I mean, obviously you were there. What did you take away from the whole interview with Semmler.
Interesting. I think the most standout point he made was that he actually thinks Valve are doing a good job right now in terms of the way they're interacting with the community, which is it's obviously a difficult one for CS fans to digest, especially esports fans. The Reddit diagnosis of Valve right now is that they're fucking everything up and they're not listening to us. But he makes a good point that basically we're a very small percentage of actually the bigger picture of CSGO as a whole, right? It's almost 11 million players in that field now. Reddit has maybe 400,000 people within it. And if you kind of break that down to actually people that post, you're probably looking about 100K about that. And that's the vocal minority, right? Considering all things considered. And esports, although it's a big part of what they do, it's certainly not the most profitable in terms of actually the updates they're doing and what they're focusing on.
The one thing I will say about that, though, is yes, you've got tens of millions of people playing and you're getting a very small percentage of feedback. Where else are you getting feedback? So what else are you going to base it off of? So if you're listening, unfortunately, and I do agree that Reddit is the minority in that sense and doesn't always have the greatest ideas, it's a conformist utopia in that sense. Like, if you look at human nature, people are going to eventually follow. There was a very cool, maybe I'll tweet it, there's a very cool video done about it that I saw the other day. But at the same time, what else does Valve have to listen to? And I think that that's a problem for Valve. Now, I don't think they're doing I'll agree with Semmler's point on that, and I'll totally respect it. They're doing a reasonable job. I think they're doing better than some other games. Everyone looks at StarCraft and said, oh, they did great. He makes a good point. They actually got stuck in that mindset, and StarCraft suffered considerably from it toward the end because there was just too many changes all at once, and it kind of collapsed a little bit. I don't think that they're still doing the best job of addressing issues in a timely fashion, though. That's my opinion on it.
It depends what issues we're talking about there specifically. Obviously, they make a lot of changes that haven't been asked for at all, but like I said, they're kind of catering to the newer players of the games, that round timing and changes, stuff like that. That didn't really seem to make any sense. It's been the same recipe for CS the last 10 years. Why does that change randomly? But obviously, they've looked at their data and the way that people are playing it generally, and they said, oh, this will probably benefit what's going on here, instead of having to mix with the actual intricate details of the game in terms of the smoke time and stuff like that. Let's just change this kind of small setting and we'll see how that affects it. And they seem to be happy with it overall. The coach thing, obviously, as we mentioned there as well, their argument is they never wanted to have coaches within majors. They've always been quite vocal about the stance that they didn't want that to be the in-game leader, kind of developed into that role as a whole. It wasn't ever planned to be like that. The question I actually asked him at that time, I said, well, Valve implemented their own coaching feature. That was part of the game they brought into it. So what was the point of even doing that? Why even have the coach slot if you're not even going to be embracing that whatsoever?
And to focus this on, again, the piece that Semmler just provided, I kind of agree that there's some very alluring aspect about having a fifth man who's kind of the front man of the band. He's the vocal, the voice of the team in that sense. And I think that there's a very good skill that he can in-game lead and still frag, and as Fallen does. Some of them don't. We know that as well. Sean Gares isn't necessarily the top fragger when he's in-game leading. Exist wasn't, etc. But it's a natural evolution. And I think in-game leading was the way to go. I think it's very cool. I think you can have an analyst as a coach who looks at games and provides you feedback afterwards. I was never really a fan of this happening and having the coaches behind them the whole time. But the reason I'm against this rule now is because Valve's created it. Like you say, they brought this into the game in some senses. And now, and it is true that they did say they weren't going to provide PCs at majors. They never said they weren't going to allow coaches or they were going to change the way coaches could function. They're still allowing coaches, let's be clear on that. But this is a natural evolution that they kind of created by not addressing this sooner in some senses.
Yeah.
So is that, again, I think it's very cool that in-game leaders exist.
Before we get too deep in that whole thing, like the coach...
We did discuss it last week in depth.
Oh, no, sorry. Before I meant in terms of before we get too deep with coaches being the in-game leader. I think there's nipping it in the bud right now. Like, right, that's it now. You've had your fun with the coaches and the in-game leaders. Stop it now. And we're going to do it the way we want to do it. And the thing is, they are the governing body right now. Everyone has to listen to it. If you want to have a major, you have to adhere to the Valve rule set, which is fair enough. It's their game. They can have it's their future. They want to do what they want to. It's going to be some kicking and fussing for the first few weeks, but you're just going to have to deal with it in the end. And I heard there was some sort of meeting with Valve. I think that actually did happen, And I think
he alluded to it. Did he not with coaches in development?
Yeah,
or something. I don't know if that was in that meeting, but yeah, the players definitely stepped in.
I think that's there was a platform for the players to give their input, but ultimately, Valve to backtrack on this now would be a pretty bold statement, I think. And I think
they have to stick to their guns,
yeah.
And I would respect them more for doing that. I don't like unless something's blatantly broken, R8 for example, I don't want to see people wish wash. If they make a decision, stick to it. People will respect you more in the future.
Yeah.
If you let them take advantage of the situation and force you to flip it, they're going to think that they can do that every time, and then you do kind of, as Semmler rightly pointed out, get stuck as the StarCraft guys did, constantly pandering to
I
it.
agree to some extent. You have to realize that they make games for a lot of people here. The esports definitely is not the driving force behind their revenue. It's the game as a whole, right? And I think people might hate the fact they release cases, but that makes them a shit ton of money to actually implement stuff to the future.
I wouldn't be surprised though if the skin market that generated around the esports element of CS does contribute. I would say my guess would be somewhere between 25 and 30%, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
That might be a high guess. I could be way off on that, but that would be what I would expect. But then again, I'm only looking at it from an esports perspective, so I don't see the outside as much.
Yeah, sure. Well, what else did we mention inside that? Talking about
skin betting as well. He mentioned
skin betting, whether that's going to affect the game.
We haven't really had any massive lands since. Obviously, we had E-League, but that had its interest.
I think the big lands will be fine overall. I think they'll take a slight hit, maybe 10-15%, maybe up to 20%. But it's the smaller lands I'm worried about. It's the really kind of like the niche events. Like let's talk about Assembly, Ace of Masters, and stuff like that. When they really relied on having the viewership boosted by CS:GO LAN, for example, right? They actually needed that to actually give them that 10k sort of viewers sort of thing. That may not sound a lot, but someone like that, and you've got a headline sponsor, that's enough to take back to them and say, look, this is worthwhile. We got your products in 10,000 people directly, right? And that's actually really beneficial for the scene as a whole. If that starts to plateau and actually goes downhill, we actually don't see them actually achieving those numbers, that could be a problem for CS:GO. We can see a lot less of those smaller events, which actually helps boost up the smaller teams, right? The teams give them to actually LAN events to go to, and they're not against top 5 teams every single time, and actually have a chance to actually win some money and get some experience and that sort of thing. That could affect those tournaments going forward.
Yeah, well, and the viewership number that I'm waiting to see would be the next series of minors.
Yeah,
because that's sort of where you're getting maybe North America aside, because Cloud9 is going to be there, but the minor system in Europe. Mind you, Godsent's going to be there too, which will bring in some numbers. But either way, I think they're the ones that would suffer the most, like the direct tier 2 to tier 3 realm that, as you say, would lack the viewership and therefore sponsorship appeal and stability in that sense.
So overall then, how do you, what are your thoughts on Valve as a whole? Like, do you feel like they are making correct decisions, or do you feel like you're against the whole philosophy of no communication and just making changes?
It's a fine line, and I come from a world where if you think the communication is poor here, this is 1,000 times better. Tribes was very good. Hi-Res was a small studio though, but COD. Good fucking luck talking to them about anything. We had to create our own goddamn mod to play the game in a functional way for esports. Producer Tom, Dr. D, knows all about it too. I mean, Diablo was, yes, Dr. D, you used the name, I didn't create it. Diablo was a big COD 4 player and he could speak to it as well. I mean, we didn't have anything, it was all on us. So, look, take what you can get and praise it. It's great that Valve are around to listen. I don't think they need to listen to every single word. I don't think they need to respond as much. I just wish they would address bug fixes and imbalance issues in a more timely fashion if they are going to listen. Jumping, some bugs have to take time to find, but still hitbox issues every now and then.
I guess it's just such a dark art to how they're approaching the game. No one really knows how much staff they've got dedicated to it.
That's the issue.
It seems like it's the from what I've heard is that the not the cool game to work with until you work with Valve. Everyone wants to be focusing on the new projects and Dota. That seems to be the one that makes more money, and that's where the best people should be dedicated. Obviously that's speculation again, but the idea of we don't actually know who's actually working full time on Valve is some guys posting on Reddit every now and then and kind of giving us some feedback and saying, oh yeah, this server will be down for this time, or there's updates coming, working on this bug. Very occasionally they'll come into it, but it doesn't seem like they've got like a dedicated team. I know they are reading Reddit, and I'm sure they are keeping an eye on it.
Well, they've got someone now that's been Ryan, I think his name is, has been responding a lot more to things, which is good to see. No, I just wish that things would be, and I think the issue is the reason I think we're all bitter isn't because we aren't getting attention. It's because when you look at Dota and see the attention that they're getting, we kind of feel like the bastard child in that sense.
Yeah, but the thing is that the solution isn't having an international, right? That's obviously not the solution. I think that would be detrimental to us as a whole. You can see that happened. We got like a $20 million tournament. We would be in the place where there's only one thing that really matters throughout the whole year, and everyone's looking forward to that thing, and it kind of takes a lot of everything else. I think we're in a good place right now. We're in recovery, obviously, with the betting being removed and like some updates and all this, the coaches stuff. I think it's like one of the questions I did recently in Sweden, I said, "Are you worried about CS:GO in the future?" I don't think no one seems to be worried. Everyone seems to be like it's a bit of a weird time. We're kind of like in the dark a little bit, but I think overall this will be a good thing for us to actually be legitimate across the board and have everything kind of regulated
and stabilized,
and we'll attract the bigger sponsors in terms of like, okay, well, you're doing everything legitimately now, and it's a scene where it's actually stable in terms of that. We just need to grow it again. It's just like we'll do it. We did it before, and we'll have to do it again. And I think we're at a great place in terms of what the numbers we have, and the game hopefully can get the updates that everyone's crying out for in terms of that stuff, and then we'll be in a really good place, I think.
I think you make a really good point actually about sponsors thinking that it's legitimate and being more comfortable diving into it. But the other one you touched on, and rightly so, is that stable. I mean, now we know where our numbers actually are. We're not getting this overinflation. Look, every company, sport, entertainment that overinflates has to kind of curve back out, and we're going to hit that, and I think that's actually a positive place, because then we can start building off the real foundation that we have.
Twitch banned all the view bots as well, so that was another factor that was going to affect us. Obviously that's amazing, now we can actually see who no one can inflate viewing figures or anything like that. You can't just inject some money into it and get some extra numbers, so it's really good. I think this is a nice vanilla time for us to actually build upon what we actually love, which is the esports. And if you talk about CS as a whole, right, we've got this, everyone was saying that there's too many events, we're seeing the same teams play every single week.
It is saturated.
But right now I really want to watch CS. We've had so many interesting lineup changes, like Na'Vi, for example, the team I really want to watch out for and see what they're doing. Liquid with Pimp, Fnatic, the new lineup, Godsend. There's actually a really exciting time to get into CS, and I can't wait till the tournament start. We can see how.
I think that's why the break is welcomed, and I think that it goes to show that if we had a few more space in between some tournaments, it might be this level of anticipation throughout the whole year. We touched on a lot. We are going to take a short break. I do want to ask one final question. I don't want to go too far with this.
There's one thing we need to talk about with this
What is it?
We didn't talk about Rim on Fire at all. Do you want to?
Oh, sure, yeah. Let's do that now, because we just finished that video.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll queue up the next conversation as soon as we come back. Room on Fire. They announced some additions yesterday, so they've gone up to a 7-man roster, I guess. They're not really a team, but a roster.
Yep.
Brought in, let me see if I can name this all, because they had Vendetta, Moses, obviously Anders and Semmler as well, and they brought in now YNK, Natsu, and Metis.
Yes, that's accurate. Like, it seems like a really interesting project. The fact is they're obviously giving themselves some stability, a content producing platform as well, kind of having some sort, I wouldn't want to say the word union, but they're kind of having the same ideas when they go to events and actually offering their services as a package, and like having at a broad array of casters and analysts as well. It seems very appealing to actually have this top talent available in one house, one stable, I guess. So it's actually quite a nice idea to kind of present this is what you'll get. You'll get a world-class professional who's approved by Rim on Fire. I guess that's the main idea behind it, and say this is what we will deliver you, this is what we expect from the organizer. There's quite a nice sort of two-way sort of street in that respect. Like, you know what you're getting as talent, and you know you're going to be protected as a caster as well if you belong to Rim on Fire. So it's quite a nice little idea there. A lot of people have been asking us, are we going to be parts of it? I guess we can probably say we're not going to be. Right now, for us, we feel like we've got too much on. We couldn't really contribute in terms of...
It would just be... We're already overwhelmed.
The fact we're doing this stuff already, we're very deep into this. We have our own separate sponsors. We've got a very clear roadmap as to where we're going with this. We have a very busy casting schedule as well. We feel like we couldn't contribute to the same level we'd want to if we were part of it. Like, obviously those guys will be producing content similar to ours every single week. Not necessarily rival content, but very similar in terms of like they'll be doing podcasts and like video interviews and all this kind of stuff, which is great. It's what we need in the scene right now. But if we were to be part of that as well, we'd have to do this, which we've already signed up to, we've already sold the rights to, and then come in and do the other stuff. And it just felt like it wasn't possible right now. So yeah, for us, we won't be joining, but it seems like a really positive thing for them to actually get involved in. I'm sure they'll announce some other signings going forward as well, take some other top tier talent. And I guess going forward, the idea as well, when you've got experienced people like Anders and Semmler at the helm of it, when they bring in the lesser talent who are part of the kind of interest group, and they can kind of like develop themselves as casters by being part of this Rim on Fire and use the tools these guys have available, like how to be on camera properly, how to interact with an audience, how to...
to be fair, they definitely don't want me to teach anyone that anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know? So like, in terms of this, like farming new talent as well, getting them up to a reasonable level, like to a professional standard, that's a really cool and interesting idea for CSGO especially. I think they're going to be branching to other games as well, not just be CSGO initially, obviously it will be.
Sure, yeah.
They've got
and the cool thing is, I mean, there is a lot of people that reach out to us as casters to say, hey, I really want to cast, how can I get into it, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a need for it. I mean, right now there's a serious lack of hosts in CSGO. There's lots of positions that could be filled if people could find the avenue and the training to get into it, because it's hard to interject yourself at the top level. You've got to work through, and where do you work through from? It's the same fight players have. So yeah, I think in that sense it could be very beneficial to a lot of those people.
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, I'm sure we'll see more and more from them. They did a show yesterday, I think. What's it called? State of CS. It's like talk show.
Yeah, that's right.
So they've got lots of bits coming up. So check
It's funny,
them out.
there's so many podcasts now.
Yeah, like
I think what happened is we dropped the bomb and it lit the room on fire again.
yeah. Well, we've got Thorin and Moses starting their
By the numbers.
By the
Why?
numbers.
I think they're calling it what it used to be called. It's on. Shoot, I had it open. I can't remember. It's whatever episode 15.
I have some on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember.
I'll look it up. Keep
Either
talking.
way, yes, they're doing it. So the thing is, when we started Drop the Bomb, what you're watching right now, there was nothing going on in terms of the podcast itself, live podcast at least. There was no one actually doing any of this. So we thought, right, this is our chance to strike. We'll get back into it. Counterpoints, that's right. And now it's great. Like, there was a big void. There was no one actually doing it, but now it seems like everyone's kind of getting into the swing of it. We've had some downtime to kind of plan this stuff, and everyone's getting back into content creating, which is only beneficial for the scene as a whole. So make sure you check those out. Room on Fire, State of CS, and Counterpoints with Thorin and Moses as well. So I think that's probably a good time to go to intermission.
Yes.
And we've got some more bits. We'll be previewing some upcoming lands and stuff like that. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What's up, guys? You're watching Drop the Bomb.
Test.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Quick little intermission, Matthew, just kind of get the sweat off our brow and open the window. It's quite smoky in here, you know.
I'm just interacting with our fans.
Oh yeah, we got some. We got some fans?
I mean, they pretend. I think they just have nothing better to do.
Right then, so we're going to get in some previews of some events coming up.
Yeah.
We're not going to touch on Star Ladder because obviously that's next week, but we're going to be there and we're going to do a live show before the event. So we're going to have a Star Ladder special next week. So let's just leave that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I kind of want to touch on this first one we're going to talk about.
Go on.
Because to me, look, I very much want to help promote esports in North America and Canada, especially in Canada. And if there's two events that I'm going to look back on this year and regret that I could not make it, it's going to be DreamHack Austin, because I had to be in Korea for the PGL Minor, and this Northern Arena event. I would have loved to have been there in Toronto and spend some more time in Canada and be very proud of what Toronto has to offer. It's a very cool city. I haven't been there in a long time, to be fair, but it's a very cool city. Unfortunately, we were just too busy. I am free this weekend, but it was just too much to fly over and fly straight back and then go to Kiev. And I could have done it, and if it was earlier in the year, I might have done it, but I'm just so run down from it. So I can't make it, but I wish the most success in the world to the organizers of that event, and I'm very excited to see a $200,000 tournament with some very good teams in Toronto.
We have got another land preview. Do you want to go and do that very, very quickly? We'll have a look at it. It's the Epicenter one, Moscow. We're not sure if we're going to be there yet. Hopefully we will be. Love to go to Moscow. Never been, have you? Ever been there?
No, I'm excited about that. Because I think we've got some time during the event as well to see the city. I think that
if we go, of course.
If we go.
Right. Just make that clear.
Just if we go.
So the invited teams are the 6 invited teams.
Yes,
I like
qualification
the
format.
Yeah. A long-winded whole online season to get them there. It's quite nice just to get 6 invited teams going. Right. So we've got G2, Fnatic, Navi, NIP, Virtus Pro, SK Gaming, and then we've got 2 spots for EU qualifier and a CIS qualifier. Let's just talk about the qualifier very quickly. So that's going to be 2 groups of 4. So you've got in Group A, you've got Astralis. Oh, this is just the EU qualifier. Right? So you've got Astralis, FaZe, Wizards, Space Soldiers, and it looks like 2 games have already been played. Astralis top of their group, not losing anything so far. FaZe have lost a game. So looking like Astralis will go through. I'm assuming this will go through to some sort of playoff bracket because...
Yeah, there's a format revealed on HLTV about it. But I mean, the first and foremost to take away from that is it's good to see Astralis performing in this qualification stage, because online they've definitely been struggling and FaZe has been very, very solid. So to see them top that right now above FaZe is encouraging in that sense. For me, the bigger scope of focus is Group B, though, where you have Heroic in there. Again, we just mentioned it. Their form's been excellent. They're in with Dignitas, who another team that can perform well. Mouse Sports with Oscar, another land that they would love to get to, I'm sure, and start really building on this new lineup. And Godsend, who in my opinion have to qualify. If they didn't make Pro League and this is the new roster, they've got to be at this event.
I want to see Godsend there.
Yeah,
I think everyone does.
I think
that'd be
exactly.
Sick. That'd be really cool. Just talking this event as a whole, obviously got the CIS stuff as well, like Gambits, Hellraisers, those sort of guys going into that one. I haven't got the table for that qualifier, but that would be, I assume Gambit probably going through on that one. Makes sense.
Yeah, I would
That
say
region.
so. Yeah, they're another
And
team
a
that
flip
like
side as well. Obviously, legendary status. I'll probably be looking to get into that. I think Gambit or flip side. Hard to tell. I haven't seen the bracket yet. But in terms of the event as a whole, what a really nice stacked event that is. All the big names there. It's gonna be SK coming in with some bad form as well. Fnatic with the new roster. NIP with potentially Michael Ailey. Who knows what kind of team's gonna turn up to that one?
Yeah.
G2 poor form right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that you're going to only get one European qualifier with Godsent, Astralis, and Heroic.
VP E-League champions.
Yep.
So there's lots of
Going
storylines
to
going on
LAN.
there. So hopefully we can do some stuff from that event. I'll give you a proper preview. We'll make sure we do a dedicated show to that if we are there, of course. Maybe we'll just go for fun.
Of course. I mean, this is one of the things that I do find very interesting is that the one spot for Europe right now, this is how competitive the landscape really is. Like I just said, you've got to see Godsent at that event, but at the same time, there's 3 player-based organizations. Now we know there's backing in these player-owned organizations as well. Let's not kid ourselves. But these player-based organizations really need representation at lands like this. They really need prize money to really survive. And there's only going to be one of the 3 of them going, with Heroic and Godsent in the first group together, and then Astralis on the other side of it. I would say that qualification for that EU spot is more cutthroat than even a major qualification spot where 8 teams get through the qualification and you don't have to be the best team on the day. In this, you do, and that's a hard fight right now between some of those teams that are in the qualification.
Lovely stuff. All right, we have one more feature to close out the show.
Right, this one was kind of fun.
Yes.
And we're gonna do a lot more stuff like this, I'm sure. We had and this is why you got to kind of keep out to the Twitter and watch the show, whether on VOD or live. We had the contest for the Fnatic Flick Mouse, and all you had to do is hashtag Flick of the Week, and I think you were entered. Simply as that. You were entered. As simply as that. So, winner gets one of these. We've narrowed it down to the top 5, counting down to number 1. I don't know if you want to cue it up, but there was basically some fucking incredible and dumb luck shots in this, but they were great.
We were kind of loose with the rules here. We wanted you to interpret it yourself. Everyone knows what a flick shot is, right? But I went through them last night with Tom. We got maybe 50 or 60 entries, right? It was loads. A lot to go through last night, but we found our favourite ones. The ones that made us laugh, and the ones that were crazy and influential in rounds. So we think we picked an apt winner. It looked like it was probably the nuttiest shot out of all of them. So without further ado, we'll have a quick look at it, and the winner does get a flick mouse. And let's check it out. Is the top 5 flick of the week. The winner is, of course, Luke Rogers. You saw him with that kind of 180 flick shot on Cobble. That was pretty nuts. It's the one that made me laugh the most and want to maybe kind of start swearing. So I was
do you know what's funny in that clip? We didn't put it in, but after he got the kill, wasn't that the one where he typed?
No, that was another one. That was actually
all right.
that was a funnier one though. That was on in Dust 2. Let's talk about that. I don't think we have it available to play. There was a clip basically where a guy he got a flick shot and it wasn't even the round over. And you could see him typing. It was like a direct copy of his play, and he just typed "fuck off" and keeps playing wins around.
Fucked.
Yeah, it's just it was really funny. It made us laugh. So we had some really funny stuff like that. But we're going to try and do this stuff every week. So Luke Rogers, we'll send a tweet out tagging you after the show, and we're going to announce another giveaway now as well with Space Jam Juice, another sponsor of the show. We're giving away some signed t-shirts and caps and stuff like that. That's just going to be a simple follow retweet sort of thing going out live after this. We've got a ton of gear we need to kind of shift, so we want to give that to you guys. Signed stuff and signed gear we're going to try and give out to you. So that's going to be coming after this. So keep an eye on our Twitter at DropTheBombtv across every social network. You can find us there.
Can I open this to show? Oh, I can. There you go.
You can. It's actually a really legit mouse. Like the whole philosophy behind Fnatic gear is keeping it simple, making sure it's professional standard, and it's got the features you need, not the features that are unnecessary. It's a very nice little mouse. We're using them here in the studio. They're lovely. So congratulations to Luke. That'll be sent out hopefully this week. Well, maybe we can't do it. Maybe Fnatic can sort it out.
Fnatic's going to send it out themselves. So we'll reach. If you're watching, Luke, even better. You can just get in touch with us right away via Twitter. But we're going to tweet at you to get your information and give it time, as all things that go through shipping. By the time we get your information, send it to them. They get it sent out. You know, it'll take a bit of time, but you will get the mouse. And you will enjoy it. You can break your wrists. Like that guy just literally goes click somewhere in the middle of this motion and nails it. I never get I can't hit shit.
We're gonna try and make more interactive giveaways like that. Like I think those are the most fun ones you can do. Yeah. You actually send in your gameplay and stuff like that. It's more relevant. So we'll try and do some more stuff like that.
Someone asked if the mouse is able to be lifted. It actually has an adjustable lift sensor, so that's why Flusha was
joking, of course.
So good.
Anyway, Matthew, I think that covers it for this show. It's been just about hour and a half, just over. Works quite nicely. I think we've covered everything we wanted to. We'll be releasing the documentary of Semmler separately on YouTube. Same with this show. It goes on YouTube. It goes on SoundCloud,
and those
iTunes.
Weeks will go up.
Yeah, everything's going up on all our social medias. Please follow that. We'll be back next week live from Kiev. We'll actually be doing a podcast from the event itself. We'll do it actually from the venue or maybe the hotel. We haven't quite worked that out yet, but we'll be there. That'll be a really cool show. We'll bring some amazing interviews with some really interesting players. I don't want to spill the beans just yet. It hasn't been 100% confirmed, but it's going to be some really cool stuff coming. So there it is. That's Drop the Bomb week 3 done and dusted. We still are working on our tagline to close things out. Maybe by next week we'll have it, but thank you so much for watching. Thanks to the sponsors, Space Jam Juice, Dark and Twitch, and of course Fnatic Gear sponsoring the giveaway this week. And yeah, we'll be back next.
Don't forget as well with Space Jam, they've got, I know it's a different esport, but esports is esports.
That's right.
Support. They've got a Call of Duty tournament coming up, which is kind of cool. We tweeted about it. It's basically a fun tournament where I think a spectator gets to join in with teams and play kind of like the play it cool thing in a way that they did last year in CS. So
it's an esports arena. It's this Monday.
That's right. So Santa Ana, California, which is down toward Anaheim.
So if you are a Call of Duty player, I think it's on console, you can play with some of the Luminosity players. They're the guys hosting the tournament with Space Jam Juice. Get down to esports arena in Santa Ana this Monday, September 5th, and you can play against some of the pros, get in the team with them, play online with them, and that sounds like a really fun event. Kind of stuff we're supporting our friends at Luminosity and Space Jam Juice. So check it out, and that about covers it for week 3. So thank you very much for watching.
Halfway through the season already, that's nuts.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back in next week, and stay safe. Take care. Goodbye.
We are darkened.